Good morning and welcome to Dr. Hood's Car Chronicles, I guess you can call it. Today we're going to talk about that sub-investigator that is visible to the clinical research trial. So it is very important that you pay close attention to who all are active in a clinical research study. But with that being said, you still have to go by those who have been assigned to that site delegation law. So, for regulation purposes, each clinical trial has to have at least one sub investigator to be on that 1572 along with the principal investigator. And this person serves as backup to the principal investigator should they not be available to assess adverse events, lab reports, any diagnostic testing such as the EKG, X-ray, CT, those sort of things, and pretty much whatever the principal investigator assigns them to. But with that being said, sometimes you will have sites that have that sub-investigator on the 1572 and delegation law just for regulatory purposes. But that person is not really active or non-existent in the clinical trial. With that being said, just because the person is not seen on lab reports, not seen assessing physical exams and that sort of thing, or whatever task they have been assigned to, does not mean that they do not have to maintain their medical license, their CV, their good clinical practice training, and any training related to the protocol. So that's typically any protocol amendments or the investigator brochure. These are documents in which the sub-investigator must maintain to stay compliant or regulatory compliant in the clinical research. So this is why I said we have to be really diligent in paying close attention to whether or not this person is active on the clinical trial or just there for regulatory or regulation purposes only. And the reason why, because a lot of times when a person is out of sight, out of mind, we forget to look at that training log, that site training log, for those individuals. And a lot of times we don't catch gaps in training. And if we are vigilant and making sure that they complete the training, we don't have to worry about by the time the next protocol amendment come out or the next IB, and that stands for investigative brochure, comes out, that they don't have documentation of training. So although it is the primary responsibility of the principal investigator, you as the CRA can help prevent gaps in training by making sure these are done as these documents are approved by the IRB. So that's another thing to point out. Training is not required until that document is approved at that site. So oftentimes, site may receive the protocol amendment or the IB prior to IRB approval, just so they can go ahead and complete that training. So by the time they receive IRB approval, and that's Institutional Review Board, they can go ahead and implement that document. But with that being said, some sites, it is their SOP, their standard operating practice, to not complete training until they receive IRB approval. So this sometimes shows that their implementation date is going to be later than the IRB approval, because that is their practice. So at minimum, the principal investigator and the primary study coordinator should complete protocol amendment training before it is implemented. As far as the investigator brochure, it's typically the principal investigator, and hopefully the sub-Is are completing it as well. So the takeaway to this video is pay close attention to your site delegation law. Whether you see the sub-investigator actively involved in the clinical trial or they're on the 1572 and delegation law for regulatory purposes only, you need to make sure that their credentials are always in good standing, that they complete any supplement training required for the duration of that clinical trial. So it has to be within expiatory date from the start of the study to the end of the study, whether they are actively involved or not, because they are on that delegation log. I hope this training helped, especially for our new CRAs who are just coming out of training. And if you have any questions or comments, please add them in the comment section. Thank you.